Baris Arduc and Elcin Sangu welcome to new baby. Baris Arduc very happy. There are moments in life that stop everything, where the noise of the world just fades, and all that exists is one tiny face, one first cry, one breath that changes everything you thought you knew about yourself. Baris Arduc had built a career out of making millions of people feel things. Through a screen, through a character, through a story that was never really his own. But on one particular day, he felt something no script could ever prepare him for. And the look on his face, captured in a single moment that spread across social media like wildfire, said more than any interview ever could. Here was a man completely undone, in the best possible way. But what actually happened? What did Elcin Sangu go through to bring this moment to life? And why did this particular celebrity baby announcement hit so differently from every other one we have seen before? This is not just a story about a baby. This is a story about two people who found each other in the middle of chaos, built something real when the cameras were not rolling, and quietly became one of the most genuinely beloved couples in Turkish entertainment. And now, they are parents. And the world is reacting in a way that tells you everything about who they are. Let us go back to the beginning, because to understand why this moment matters so much, you need to understand the road that brought them here. Baris Arduc is not your typical celebrity. Yes, he is impossibly good-looking. Yes, he has millions of fans across Turkey and internationally. And yes, his career trajectory has been the kind that other actors whisper about with a mix of admiration and envy. But what has always made Baris different is something harder to define. There is a quality to him, a sincerity, that leaks through even the most polished interviews. He does not perform happiness. He either feels it or he does not. And when he does not feel something, you can tell. Which is exactly why, when he does show real joy, people believe it. He rose to prominence through a string of deeply successful Turkish television productions that captured not just domestic audiences, but international viewers through streaming platforms hungry for compelling drama. His roles tended to carry weight. Characters with complexity, with contradiction, with depth that required him to go to places that are uncomfortable. And he did it consistently. Critics noticed. Audiences fell hard. But for all the professional success, his personal life remained something he guarded carefully. Baris is not the kind of celebrity who turns his kitchen into a content creation studio or live streams his morning routine. He gives you just enough to feel connected, and then draws the line. That is rare. That is also enormously smart. Because when something real does break through, it carries 10 times the emotional weight. Elcin Sangu entered his world and changed the math entirely. Elcin is, by any measure, one of the most respected actresses in Turkish television. Her career spans years of remarkable work. Her performances have earned her a reputation as someone who brings genuine intelligence to every role she touches. But beyond the professional accolades, Elcin has always been known for something else. An honesty that borders on disarming. She does not give you the celebrity version of herself. She gives you something closer to the actual version, with all the vulnerability and warmth that entails. When Baris and Elcin's relationship became public knowledge, the reaction was not the usual tabloid frenzy. It was something quieter and more powerful. People just felt happy for them. Which, if you have spent any time around celebrity culture, you know is extraordinary. Celebrity couples usually generate gossip, debate, comparison, sometimes even resentment from fans who feel territorial about their favorite star. But Baris and Elcin managed to generate something different. Genuine warmth. From strangers. That said, their path together was not without its challenges and its questions. They navigated public attention while also trying to protect something private and sacred. They appeared together at events, gave occasional glimpses into their life, but never crossed the line into oversharing. It was a balance that took real intention to maintain. And fans, the real fans, respected it deeply. The relationship deepened over time in the way that real relationships do. Not in grand public gestures, but in consistency. In choosing each other again and again, quietly, away from the spotlight. And when the news eventually broke that they were expecting their first child together, the internet did not just respond. It erupted. But here is where the story gets interesting, because the announcement itself tells you a lot about who these two people actually are. There was no elaborate pregnancy photo shoot with a team of photographers and a professional lighting setup. There was no cryptic Instagram post designed to maximize engagement. What emerged instead was something that felt accidental in the most beautiful way. A moment that felt lived in rather than performed. And that distinction matters more than people realize. When the confirmation of the pregnancy spread through Turkish media and then rippled outward through international entertainment communities, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Social media platforms flooded with messages. Not the usual congratulatory noise that follows celebrity announcements, but something more personal. People writing about how much these two meant to them. Fans from Turkey, from across the Middle East, from Europe, from South America, where Turkish television has a passionate and enormous following, all responding with the kind of emotion usually reserved for people you actually know. That is the Baris and Elçin effect. And it has never been more visible than in these past weeks. Now, throughout the pregnancy, both Baris and Elçin maintained the balance they had always struck. They acknowledged the reality without turning it into a spectacle. Elçin shared carefully, thoughtfully, in ways that felt authentic to who she has always been. Baris, characteristically, let his emotions show in flashes. A smile in a photo that was slightly too wide. A comment in an interview that wandered just briefly into something real before he pulled it back. These little breaks in composure became their own kind of communication to the audience that had followed them for years. And then the baby arrived. The details that have emerged, and it is important to note here that some of what has circulated is confirmed through official channels or credible media sources, while other elements remain within the realm of fan reporting and social media speculation, paint a picture of a moment that was everything you would expect from these two people. Intimate, emotional, real. What is confirmed is that Baris Arduc's reaction to becoming a father has been the subject of enormous public attention. The images and accounts that surfaced, whether through media reports or glimpses shared by the couple themselves, showed a man genuinely transformed by the experience. Not performing transformation, actually living it. There is a difference, and anyone who has watched Baris perform for years can tell when he is doing one versus the other. Reports from Turkish entertainment media that have consistently covered this story describe Baris as deeply emotional in the hours surrounding the birth. This tracks entirely with what we know of him. He is a person who feels things fully and does not particularly apologize for it. In a culture of celebrity that often rewards emotional detachment and projected coolness, Baris has always quietly rejected that posture. He cried at a project wrap. He spoke about his family with unguarded tenderness. He has never tried to be the version of himself that plays it cool. And fatherhood, apparently, brought that quality to an entirely new level. The specific details of the baby, including the name and the exact date of birth, have been the subject of enormous speculation online. Fans have been piecing together clues from social media activity, from the timing of public appearances and disappearances, from subtle changes in what was being posted and what was suddenly not. It is a kind of collective detective work that celebrity culture produces, where the audience becomes almost investigative in its obsession with finding the story before it is officially told. What has emerged through credible reporting is that the couple welcomed their child in circumstances that were carefully protected from public intrusion, consistent with how they have always managed the most important parts of their lives. The privacy was not defensive, it was deliberate. A gift to themselves and to this new little person who had not yet had the chance to decide how much of the world they wanted to let in. But the glimpses that have emerged, the hints, the moments, the small breaks in the curtain, they have told a story that the audience was already hungry to hear. Baris Arduc, the man who has played heroes and anti-heroes and everything complicated in between, apparently met his match in someone who weighs just a few kilograms and cannot yet form a sentence. The accounts of his early days as a father, filtered through the particular lens of Turkish entertainment media, which has been following this story with enormous attention, describe someone completely absorbed. Someone for whom the world outside a particular room has temporarily ceased to exist. That image. of a man that millions of people have watched be extraordinary on screen, sitting quietly in the realest moment of his life. It is genuinely moving. And it explains the reaction that has been building across platforms since news of the birth began to spread. Elçin Sangu, for her part, has demonstrated throughout this entire journey the same qualities that have defined her publicly for years. A grace that does not feel performed. A warmth that does not feel calculated. Pregnancy in the public eye is a particular kind of experience that comes with its own unique pressures. There are opinions from strangers. There are comparisons. There is the constant background hum of public attention on something deeply personal and physical in a way that few other life experiences are. Elçin navigated all of it with a steadiness that was quietly remarkable. The messages she received from fans throughout the pregnancy reflected the relationship that she has built with her audience over years of honest, committed work. These were not messages from people who felt they owned a piece of her story. They were messages from people who felt genuinely connected to her and who wanted something good for her. That is a different kind of celebrity connection. It is rarer and it is worth noting. The global dimension of this story is also something worth spending a moment on, because it reflects something significant about how Turkish entertainment has changed the landscape of international television. Turkish television productions, what is often referred to within the industry as dizi, have in the past decade become a genuine global phenomenon. These are long-form dramatic series with high production values, complex characters, and storytelling that draws on both traditional dramatic structures and deeply specific cultural contexts. They have found enormous audiences not just in neighboring countries, but in Latin America, in South Asia, in parts of Europe and Africa. The appetite for Turkish drama internationally is not niche. It is massive. And Baris Arduc and Elçin Sangu are among the faces most closely associated with that global reach. Which means this story is not being followed only in Turkey. It is being followed across the world, in countries where their work has connected with audiences who have made them a part of their emotional lives without ever meeting them. That is what screen presence actually means when it is genuine. It crosses borders. It persists. And it makes a moment like this one, a real human moment about new life and family, land with weight in places the couple may never have imagined. Fan communities in multiple countries have been sharing the news, translating posts, creating tribute edits, flooding comment sections with congratulations in dozens of languages. This is not manufactured engagement. This is what happens when two people spend years being real enough that strangers across the planet develop something that functions almost like genuine affection for them. There is something in the timing of this story that also deserves acknowledgement. We are living in a moment where celebrity culture is increasingly complicated, where parasocial relationships between fans and public figures raise questions about what is healthy and what is invasive, where the line between public and private is constantly being negotiated in real time and often badly. Against that backdrop, the way Baris and Elçin have handled their journey into parenthood is something of a case study in doing it well. They have not shut the world out entirely. That would have been impossible and also, in its own way, a kind of dishonesty given the genuine connection they have built with their audience. But they have also refused to commodify the experience. They have not turned the pregnancy into a content strategy. They have not performed their emotions for engagement metrics. They have simply lived their lives, shared what felt right, protected what mattered most, and trusted that their audience was capable of respecting the boundaries they drew. And the audience has largely met them there, which says something hopeful. There are questions still floating around this story that have not been definitively answered through official channels. Details that fans are still piecing together, details that may emerge in the coming weeks as the couple decides what to share and how and when to share it. The name, the specific circumstances, the first photograph. These are moments still to come, and the anticipation around them is its own particular kind of beautiful suspense. But what is already known is enough to understand why the story has resonated the way it has. Baris Arduc became a father. Elçin Sangu became a mother. And the two people who spent years being extraordinary in fictional worlds have now stepped into the most unfictional, unscriptable, genuinely transformative role that exists. There is a moment that actors sometimes describe when they talk about the most challenging roles they have ever played. The ones that required them to access something true, something lived, something that no amount of technical skill could manufacture. They talk about going to a place inside themselves that is real rather than constructed. The interesting thing about parenthood is that it is entirely that experience, except it never ends, and there is no director to call cut. Baris Arduc knows more about human emotion than most people his age, because he has spent his career studying it, inhabiting it, using it. But this is different. This is the education that no role can provide. And by every account that has emerged, he is taking it with the full weight of everything he has. The story of Baris and Elçin is ultimately a story about two people who built something real in a world that rewards performance. Who chose honesty over image, depth over gloss, and quiet joy over public spectacle. And who have now brought a new person into that world. A person who will grow up with parents who know the difference between what the world shows and what the world actually is. That is not a small thing. That is actually everything. For the audience that has followed their journey across years and projects and the slow unfolding of a love story that never felt manufactured, this moment is a kind of arrival. Not an ending, but a beginning. The next chapter of a story that has consistently been worth watching. And for Baris Arduc specifically, a man who has made his living by making people feel things, there is something quietly perfect about the fact that the moment that has most captured the public imagination is not from a scene he rehearsed, not from a character he crafted, but from the most unscripted, unrehearsed, genuinely human moment of his entire life. A man holding his child for the first time, reportedly unable to speak, reportedly overwhelmed in the way that only the truly unprepared can be overwhelmed by joy, completely undone by something that no amount of talent or preparation could have gotten him ready for. That is the moment people are responding to, not the celebrity, the human being underneath it. And it turns out, after all this time, that the human being underneath it is exactly as good as the audience always hoped he would be. What do you think? Let us know in the comments.